I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling. Shouldn't be trusting me, I could be making it all up, you know. Out of control, you don't know me. I'm a danger to myself.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is that you are tuning in. This is Unapologetically Me, featuring me. No special guest, just me. So how are you guys today? I hope that you are doing well. We're doing good over here. I just really would like it if spring would just get on with it and we could just keep snow out of it until winter again, because I'm definitely over it and ready for summer. So we're going to be doing part 3 of Kendrick Johnson today, and part 4 will be out tomorrow, as long as YouTube complies. I don't know what the hell's going on, you guys, but I know I'm not the only one dealing with it. It's just kind of crazy right now. It's like, I don't know. So anyway, getting on with the Kendrick Johnson case. We're going to be talking about, some more of the lawsuits. We're going to go more deeper in. There's a lot about this case that I still have yet to talk about. So we are going to finish it up this week. And then after that, I have some people that have asked me kind of behind the scenes to what I think about the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp situation. So I think we will be doing that next. But I do also have a true crime case that I will be presenting next week alongside of that. So lots to come, and but first we got to wrap this one up. So here we go. So I left you guys, talking about some of the allegations that the family had said, and talking about some of the last surveillance footage shown of KJ entering the gym and the cameras not being able to capture it. Basically, I left you with a lot of questions, and we are going to be answering a lot of those questions in parts 3 and 4. So this is part 3, part 4 is coming, so let's get into it. So if this was a murder, who did it, right? Who are the suspects in this case? So that's what we're going to start to get into now. So we have those allegations in that $100 million lawsuit. And in that lawsuit, there are some additional lawsuits that were filed against the school superintendent, the school principal, and the Lowndes County School District as a whole. And while the family didn't come right out and say that they felt that this was because Kendrick was black, it was heavily implied. They said things such as the school was negligent and violated KJ's constitutional rights to equal protection based on his race. They also ignored reports that KJ had been repeatedly harassed by another student who was white and had a history of provoking KJ at school in the presence of coaching staff as well as other employees. The first accusation against Brian and Brandon Bell came out in a video posted by KJ's grandfather, Eddie. He stated that it had something to do with a GBI agent's son getting into an altercation with KJ on the bus. Ebony Magazine had a lawsuit filed against them by Brian and Brandon Bell's family for naming these two as suspects in a spread that they had done. Ebony Magazine counteracted this by saying that they never used the names Brian and Brandon Bell. They used fake names, but they very accurately described the boys. And it was to the point where everybody knew that they were talking about Brandon and Brian Bell. Brian and Brandon Bell began to get a lot of negative attention after this. Brian was a big football linebacker, and he was already signed, even though he was a freshman, even though he was still very early on in high school. They knew that they wanted him, and he had a future in football. And Brandon was a wrestler. Their father, Rick Bell, was an FBI agent out of Atlanta, Georgia. November 4th, 2013, Kenneth Johnson spoke about an altercation that had taken place between Brian and KJ, and he said that he felt the attack on KJ was planned. However, the problem here is that when Kenneth brought this to the attention of everybody, he made it sound like this incident had happened very close to KJ's death, like a day or two before. He basically, the same week that KJ was found, he kind of led everyone to believe that that's when this altercation had happened. But this altercation actually happened a year prior to KJ's death, and there were no witnesses to ever support that the second part of what he said, which was that Rick Bell invited KJ over to his home to refight Brian to kind of finish things off, saying that it wasn't a fair fight, and you can come to our house anytime and have a fair fight. Nobody witnessed that. Supposedly KJ told his father that was said to him by Rick Bell. So the actual altercation, it was allegedly, this was on a bus on their way home from an away basketball game. And I guess Brian and KJ had been trading off your mama jokes. And according to Kenneth, KJ outwitted Brian, and that had made Brian mad. Kenneth said, "They start saying your mama jokes, and my son got the best of him with the jokes, and he came at him, and he tried to put him in a headlock, and my son put it to him real good." The two boys were separated for the remaining bus ride, and when they got back to the school, Brian was allowed to go home with his parents, and KJ was brought home in the school security officer's vehicle. So this all did happen, the altercation, but it happened a year prior. And according to everybody else, Brian and KJ had been friends for years before this altercation. And after this altercation, they had put it all behind them and they continued to be friends. They even worked on a science project together. Now, KJ's family says that they were never friends, like ever. And they did work on a science project together, and there was proof of that, though. I mean, that could have been school assigned, so they, not just because they're, you know what I'm saying? Even if they weren't friends, the teacher could have been like, you two are sitting together, you two are working together. So that could have been why, or they could have been friends. We don't know. The family says they were never friends ever, like even before this. And students have said they were friends before and after this. So we don't know for a fact here. It's that he said, she said. And the school said that the only reason that KJ went home in the security vehicle was because Brian's parents were there to pick him up and KJ's parents were not. So the security guard who took him home also was a black woman who knew him and knew his family. And she stated that she gave him a ride home just kind of as a kind gesture. That it wasn't because he was in trouble or anything like that. He didn't have a ride home. She offered him a ride home. He sat in the front seat. They talked. There was nothing like behind it at all. It had nothing to do with the altercation. But Kenneth says that this was racism. The white kid goes home with his parents. The black kid goes home in a police car. Now, he made this statement, but obviously this was a fabrication. He did not go home in a police car. He went home in the school security vehicle with a family friend, just as a kind gesture. So that's how the school tells it. I wasn't there. I don't know. But it definitely wasn't a police car like he was making statements. Another allegation that Kenneth Johnson made was that the Bell brothers had used a female student to lure KJ into the gym that day. And that's when the two brothers beat him up and hid his body by rolling him up into a gym mat. And that is when multiple agencies, including the Bell brothers' father, helped cover up the murder and convinced everyone that it had been an accident. Supporters of KJ began trying to put the pieces together. In 2014, a 19-year-old named Dalton Chauncey went to the Lowndes County Sheriff's Office and claimed to have been threatened during a conversation between two other high school students. He said that they were talking about their part in KJ's murder. 3 weeks later, he was arrested for filing a false report after his statements could not be corroborated with correct timelines. Chauncey said that the two talked about how they wanted to rough KJ up and it went too far. After Chauncey admitted that he made the whole thing up to show off to his friends. So he says that those two students didn't exist, and he came clean after the police department wanted him to take a lie detector test. But his mother said that her son's not all there and that the boys took advantage of him. And that everything that Dalton Chauncey said was true. And that the reason that he took it all back was so that the police department would stop questioning him. He pled guilty to the charges, and he said the names of the boys were Derek and Keith, and that he didn't know their last names. So I don't know how much that was looked into. Did they just assume it was the Bell brothers, or did they look for a Derek and Keith that knew KJ? I don't know. And I gotta say, I believe Dalton Chauncey. He, as you will see as we get on in this, it's been said by a few sources that Rick Bell got a hold of some people and kind of threatened them to not say anything. Whether that's a lie or whether it's true, we don't know. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know. But it was said enough that it definitely raises a lot of suspicion. So, you know, and his mom basically said he's not all there. He felt like the police, when they wanted a lie detector test, and it was like almost like, oh, I just wanted to come and tell you guys what I knew. I don't want to be taking a lie detector test. I don't want, you know, and then once these allegations came out, it was like he was threatened by someone. And so he went and he took everything back and made up different names and everything. So I don't know. I kind of believe that Dalton Chauncey was probably telling the truth. But, you know, I kind of have already made my mind up about this case. So anyway, let's move on. So the Johnson family and their lawyer put out a video, and they laid out a theory about these two white students that did this to KJ. And they put it on Facebook, and somehow, a lot of people ended up calling Brian Bell out. They basically started a campaign to revoke Brian's football scholarship to FSU. They contacted the school to have it rescinded, and eventually it was. They claimed that Brian Bell had violent tendencies and was a psychopath. Now, keep in mind, Brian Bell was never named a suspect by police, yet he had his entire career just yanked out from underneath of him by being labeled a murderer. He had never been arrested for this crime. He had never been named a suspect or even a person of interest in KJ's death. And the death itself had never been ruled a homicide, like, that everyone could agree on. So, in my opinion, this was wrong. I mean, he was already convicted in everybody's mind, and he had his scholarship and everything revoked. So, and he was never even actually named a suspect, and I think that was wrong. Whether or not he had anything to do with it, there was no proof at all at the time, and there still isn't enough proof to even call him a suspect. So I feel that was wrong. I do understand why FSU did what they did. I mean, they were basically backed into a corner, and I don't think they had a whole lot of choice in the matter if they wanted their reputation to stand and be upheld. They had other students to offer scholarships to that did not have half this junk going on surrounding them. And, you know, unfortunately, if Brian Bell was at some point listed as a suspect, they would have never been able to live that down. So I have my moments where I feel that Brian Bell is for sure a suspect, but he was never named one. So a 16-year-old girl by the name of Taylor Eakin was called to testify to the grand jury, specifically because the family thought that she was Brian's girlfriend at the time of KJ's death. The Johnson family believed that she was the girl that lured KJ into the gym on that day, and she was grilled on the stand about Brian Bell along with other things. Questions like, did Brian take steroids? Did Brian's large size scare her ever? Did Brian Bell ever hit her? Were they sleeping together? She was also asked if she liked black guys and if she knew KJ and if they were ever more than friends. There was a suggestion that she had been cheating on Brian with KJ, and Brian found out about this and used Taylor to bust him out. She claimed she wasn't dating Brian until 13 months after KJ's death, and there is no proof of any of this. So no proof that they were ever dating beforehand or anything else. The FBI determined after looking at all of the surveillance that neither the Bell brothers or the third person named, which was Ryan, his last name will come up. Ryan is his first name. Anywhere near third person, they were nowhere near the gym at the time of KJ's death. So they could not place any, looking through all the surveillance, those boys were nowhere near KJ at the time of his death. All the students that have been questioned said nothing that would point towards homicide. Brian Bell was seen walking towards the D wing at that time, and he was at his 4th block class on time. So he wasn't late. He was not even, he's in the D wing, which is a total different wing. Brandon Bell wasn't even in school at all at that time. He was on a bus to a wrestling meet. And Ryan, the third boy that I mentioned, was walking towards the L wing, was actually in the parking lot at the time that KJ had entered the gym. But even with this information, the family still would not let go of this, saying that they had proof in the form of a paper saying that Brandon's bus didn't leave until 4 p.m. However, this paper was actually a trip request form that was filled out weeks before the tournament, and at the time the bus reservation form was filled out, they didn't have an exact time that they were going to be leaving, and so they just put 4 p.m. as kind of like a placeholder to reserve the bus. So just because that form said that they were going to be leaving at 4, they actually did not end up leaving at 4. They left earlier than that, and we'll get into that will come up. On January 10th, the day that this happened, the wrestling team had lunch between 11:32 a.m. and 12:02 p.m. They then boarded the bus to Macon, Georgia. Cell phone records prove that the coach and Brandon were there in Macon, Georgia, and this was 80 miles away, which makes his alibi a rock-solid alibi. The FBI told Michael Moore, who had picked up this case, that the Bell brothers had been cleared, but Moore brought in his own investigators from Washington, D.C. anyways. July 21st of 2015, the Bell family, who had temporarily moved to Florida due to all of the harassment and threats that they were getting, were awoken by armed police to search their home. Now, I don't know what the probable cause was for this to be able to happen, but it had to be pretty substantial. I mean, they busted this door down at 4 a.m. or something like that. Oh, I didn't say yet, but it was about 4 or 5 a.m. And they just busted in there, full gear and everything, and tore the place apart. But they found nothing. Though, keep in mind, I mean, this is 3 years later at this point. This is 2015, and KJ was found dead in 2013. So, we're pushing 3 years here, and they also moved. They're not living in the same home that they had been living in. So, I don't know what they had expected to find, but I know all of their tech was seized, phones, computers. So I'm not surprised that they didn't find anything, though. So all of this is going on, and everyone's searching for evidence and fighting for justice for KJ, yet nothing is turning up. All of these allegations have been looked at and proven to not have anything behind them to make them stick as actual evidence or any proof. And it's about this time that Reverend Floyd Rose made a statement, and he said, "I am a person of truth, and truth is more important than race." He also said, When this thing all started, I really thought there was something to it. But when the dust settles, the truth will still be the truth. There is exculpatory evidence that these two boys did not commit this crime. Brandon was 80 miles away, and that was confirmed. Brian was not late to his 4th hour class. So is that enough time to not only hurt someone that badly, but then roll them up, put the mat up, put all the other mats around it, and then still make it to class all the way in D-Wing on the other side of the school and not even be late or out of breath or sweating or anything? So the other boy, Ryan, was in the parking lot at the time, at the complete other end of the school as well. And this is all at the time that there is proof that KJ was seen on surveillance entering the old gym. So if this was an attack or somebody did this to KJ, when would this have happened? And who would have done it? Because the evidence shows that it could not have been the Bell brothers. Lee Touchton spoke on this as well. And remember, Lee Touchton, as well as Reverend Floyd Rose, were both very deep into this investigation and very close with the family. Remember, Reverend Floyd Rose also put his house up when, to help bail them out of jail. So these were two people that were very much on their side at the beginning. But at this point, after all the searching and investigating and court and hearing witness statements and all of that, and finding zero evidence that this was a homicide, they're starting to question the motives of the Johnson family. Lee Touchton said that July 2013 was when she first began to question the motives of the Johnson family. She said that she was in a conference call with the parents and their lawyer, C.B. King, and Lee said that due to false allegations, which I determined to be lies, not just misstatements of facts, I resign because I am not going to be forced by any NAACP president to get out in public and call people murderers publicly when there is no credible evidence to claim a murder has been committed. The family asking the NAACP for assistance and for money was not telling the truth. Unquote. So the SCLC said the same thing. They believe that the Johnsons haven't been entirely truthful about statements that they have or have not made. And there are more people who don't believe that KJ was murdered besides these two. And many of these people were very close to the Johnson family from day one and were very supportive in helping them get this justice. The NAACP and SCLC, that is what they do. Okay, they represented Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. They are for finding justice against racial, discrimination, and they are not seeing that happening here. So for them to say we don't see this as a racial injustice and we don't see going after these people anymore because the evidence just isn't there to do it. And based off of everything that they had found and they had discovered, they found a lot of the statements that the Johnson family had made to be very speculative and very fabricated, to the point of like shock value. So they were like, we don't want to be part of this anymore. And we will definitely get into that more in part 4. So we will be ending this video now, but I'm going to roll right into part 4 and I'm going to be uploading it right after this one uploads. So, we are going to be finishing this case today. So make sure if you aren't subscribed, and even if you are subscribed, that you hit that notification bell. That's how you get alerted whenever I put out another video. So make sure that you do that. Please like, please comment. I told you I'm making these way shorter because I'm having issues uploading, and I want to make sure that my content's getting out on the days that I plan, because just like a job, I have planned content to go out on certain days, and if it doesn't, the next day I am doing something else. You know, I got 4 kids. I got a lot going on here. So I need my stuff going out when I plan for it to, because I do not like to be late, and I definitely don't want to let you guys down or make you think that I am incompetent. So I will see you guys in a little bit. I hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.